Spry Whimsy Fiber Arts. I'm Peter. I've had a video out for quite a while. If you searched YouTube, you would find under Peter Felted Flower, you'd find a time lapse of how I make my flowers. Well, I think it's time I finally actually slowed that down, gave you step by step, similar to what I would do if I was teaching a class. This is one of my more popular classes where I show people how to make the flower, and then in the class, they get the chance to make two of them, so they get to make their mistakes in the first one and improve on the second. Hopefully learn along the way. I'll go through the tools I use and my technique, and then I'll show you some finished flowers at the end. Thank you. All right, now I'm going to show you how I make my flower. First, we'll start with some tools. I have a Heartfelt Silks palm washboard with the mesh fabric that comes with it. I am working on solar pool cover, which makes an excellent work surface for wet felting, and it is very durable. I've had pieces that have lasted for up to 5 years without any problem. I have my soap is Palmolive Free and Clear. This is what I use. This is what I love to work with. I've tried some other things. This just seems to work very well for me. It's easy to add. It's easy to mix in as I go. I have my crock here of soapy water with my ball sprinkler. Then I'm working with merino wool, pre-dyed, pre-carded, ready to go. And I will be adding in some accent fibers of bamboo. So I start picking a center point for my flower, and I will just grab a little bit, and I will make 5 points to that flower. Everything I grab goes towards the middle. Now if I have a true 5 points, no two should be directly across from each other, and these connect in the middle. That's important. Then I'm going to create an entire layer of fiber, and this particular layer is not going to go to the middle. Now when I grab this, I'm not grabbing with 2 fingers. I'm trying to grab across the whole band here, but I don't want to be greedy. I just want to take light, thin layers that will overlap. So let's just lay that down. You can still slightly see through it. And I'm overlapping the previous one. And what I grab from my hand goes towards the middle, and it radiates out from that middle. All the fibers should be fanning out, overlapping as I go. So that goes all the way around. Might be a little thin. Let me just add a little bit more. Very thin. I can still see slightly through it. If it gets too thick, you run into problems later in the process. Now I'm going to change colors and work towards the front of my flower. So that was the back. And you can see I still see my center point from the back side. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing I did with this teal with this navy here. And to go around in thin overlapping layers, keeping that center open. You want to think of it like you would with spray painting. You don't want, if you were spray painting, you wouldn't try to do everything in one coat. You do thin layered coats of paint. You want to do the same thing with the fibers here. If it's all in one layer and thick, it would be very clumpy. All right, that's a completed layer there. Now I'm going to change colors again. And this time I'm going back to just my pinch with 5 points. I can still see that center point, and I am going to go back to it now. So again, 5 points, reconnecting in the middle. And I try to space them out so they're even. Like I said, if they're even, you shouldn't have them straight across from each other. So let's just tweak that around a little bit, and hopefully that'll make things a little more even, sort of. All right, now I'm going to get into the bamboo. So I'm going to grab a little of the gold bamboo here, and I'm going to put that over the tangerine color I used. Now the bamboo has a shimmer to it that wool doesn't. Wool is a dull fiber. Now let's see if I can do this with the red. So on the blue here, I'm going to add little accents of red in the middle. Oop, that was a little much. And it's nothing more than the length of the fiber. And I very much rely on the lengths of the staple length of the fibers that I'm working with. So that's my layout. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the next stage of the process, which is wetting down the fibers and starting to rub this. So I'm going to take my sprinkler, already has the water in it, and I'm going to squeeze and move fast. And that's it. Done. Now I'm going to take my fabric that comes with the palm washboard, lay it over the project, and I'm going to start rubbing this gently at first from the center out until I push the fluffies out of it, make sure the water's all the way through. Start to gently rub, and I don't know if you can see it here, I can start to see the shape of the bubbles underneath. That's telling me that my flour has been sort of impressed into the bubbles and should stay put as I rub it. Now as I'm rubbing this, you'll note I'm being vigorous about it, but I don't have to push hard to do it. A little more than the weight of the tool is enough. And as I'm rubbing, I don't want to pick up between rubs and do little bits. I want to go from top to bottom, all the way across, side to side, all the way across, diagonally, all the way across, other diagonal, all the way across. And just keep repeating that in a cycle. Switch hands once in a while. So the question is always, how long should you rub for? Well, it depends on the person. Some people do get very aggressive. Some people do it like this. So the time is irrelevant. It's all a sense of how much you've agitated the fibers properly. Sometimes you'll be able to see a little bit of the fibers sneaking their way through and winding up on the surface. That's a good indicator. I'm going to take this a little longer. All right, now I'm going to peel this off. It should stick to the fabric just a little, not a lot. If it over sticks, you've gone a little too long. If it doesn't stick at all, maybe you could have gone a little longer. That's sticking down here, which is kind of good. All right, now I'm going to grab it at my 2 and 10 and just flip it. There's the back side of my flower. And lay my fabric back over it. And repeat the process. Now this is the part when I'm doing a demo where I usually say, you look at all the things I have here. There's wool, which is used for spinning as well. I got dish soap, which is generic dish soap. The sprinklers, I believe they come from the bonsai industry where you can water your bonsai trees with it. This is one of the only tools here that is meant for felting. And that's one of the reasons I love it. It was designed by a felter for felters. Very comfortable grip. Easy to hold on to. My wrist is straight when using it. that should be enough rubbing. Now I'm going to peel this off again. Set the fabric aside. Now I'm going to just pick it up from the middle. Kind of wring it down so it's all straight up and down. There's lots of little folds in that. And squeeze out the sloppy part. Alright. Alright. Now I'm going to take this little bud that I started, and that's important to how the flower is shaped. Think of this as a bud. So I'm going to start by gently rolling it. It still has moisture in it. I don't want it too dry, but I don't want it sloppy and flopping around. And I'm working it top to bottom, the whole thing, but I don't want to work it too long. I'm being very gentle to start, because if I work it too long right now, what's going to happen is when I had the two parts that were slightly felted on the table, now that they've been brought together, if I rub it too long, they will felt together. So I'm going to open this up gently, and as I go, I'm looking for areas that are overlapped to open them up. Now I only want to worry about this on the first time I rub it. So I have all my 5 points and my 5 accents, and I'm going to reverse it. Feel like I need a little moisture, I pick it up from the table and rub some more. Now that I reversed it, I can rub a little harder and rub a little longer. I can rub a little longer because it's less likely to felt to itself at this point, but still has a chance. If I keep going too long, I'll just wind up with a bud I can't open. Now, when I deal with this time, as I open it up, I don't want to flatten it out. I just want to invert it like that. I can pull it up like this, but I don't want to make it flat. And then rub some more. Another reason to keep inverting it is sometimes if you're a little thick, it's hard to maintain this rub. You see my center point is still very visible here. Sometimes your center drifts because the fibers are all off alignment. And reversing it helps you just keep realigning that center. So I'm putting a lot more pressure on it now as I'm rubbing. Open it up again and invert it. Now I could pull and tug like this. Rub some more, and rub pretty hard now. It's starting to come together pretty quick here. One more reversal. Now this time, now remember, I'm just reversing it. I'm not flattening it. I just want to invert it. So I'm the right side out right now, and I give it a quick rinse. All right, I took it to the sink and I rinsed it out. Got most of the soap out, but not all of it. It's still in very much a cone shape. And now I am going to take my scissors, and if you look at this, I put down the red bamboo in here. I'm going to cut on that red bamboo line, on the blue section, but on the red bamboo line. Now, I don't want to go all the way down. I need to keep structure to keep this flower upright. Just cutting part way down. Sometimes you'll wind up with a really long petal coming off one side. You may cut further, but it's the distance from the center that you need to maintain. Otherwise, you lose all structure and it just lays flat. So now that I made those cuts, I'm going to rub this one last time really hard. And now that those cuts are made, this will all shrink together, where it's now allowed to shrink away from its neighbors that it used to be attached to. So one really good, solid, hard rub like you're trying to start a fire. All right. Now I'm going to open this up. And you see they're a little spindly. Doesn't look like much right now. Now here's where some of the magic happens. Again, keeping that cone shape, keeping it upright as I do this, I'm going to overlap my petals and open the middles of them. Leave the tops alone, open my petals all the way around, keeping it overlapped, keeping it upright. Then I can fold this back. Now, you can see I had put that red bamboo on the blue, and that's where I cut. So that red bamboo line has created edges to my petals on some of them. So it gives a little accent shimmer to it. Now all I have to do is just let it sit and dry just like that, and I have a finished flower. Now I'm going to show you a variation of this technique with another one that I've started, where I'm going to go larger than this one by adding an extra outer ring of another color. Okay, on this variation of the flower, you can see I still have my center. I have my main layer. On the back side, I have the same thing. I have my 5 points there, my main layer, different color here. But what I did around the outside of that was took the purple and just did a layer between the two center layers all the way around the outer edge. Just one layer that's kind of thin. Then I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to pick this up, bring it out, rub it, just like I did the other one. Now it's a lot bigger, so I got a lot more to work with. Oh, and other note on this is rather than just the 5 points, because it's bigger, I went to 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points. It helps lay this out a little better. So I'm just going to keep rubbing and reversing and rubbing and reversing. But one other difference I'm going to do in this, because it has that outer layer that makes it so much bigger, and it's a thin layer, I can create more tentacle-y petal ends. Now, I was talking before about my center shifting. Here's where my point is, but my center is really over here. So that's why we reverse it and recenter once in a while. And the bigger the flower, the thicker it is, the more likely your center is going to shift as you're rubbing. Get rid of a little more water. Rub. Reverse it again. Now, if it's really frothy with the soap, you're more likely to have it floating on itself, and then it really does seem to float and shift, and you lose that center easily. Now, one of the things I want to show you now was I have all these crazy ends out here, and I'm going to play with those. I am actually going to accentuate those crazy ends, tearing it open a little bit, keeping the base of it the same, but this purple section I'm going to tear. As I do this to separate those sections. And then rub some more and work it just like I did the other. And I'll jump to the end now. All right, I rubbed this second one quite a bit more and rinsed it now. And now I'm going to go for my cutting, and you can see all these little crazy tentacles now. That's going to make for a really interesting flower. So I'm going to go down the middle of the gold section between my greens, and kind of ignoring what happens on those tentacles because there's plenty of them. Now I got 7 of these this time instead of just 5. Again, leaving structure in the middle as I cut. Now, one last rub, really hard. Now they should be all little spindly petals. I'm going to do my overlapping opening as I go around. It's a slight tear. Sometimes, like that one, you actually wind up tearing right through. It's very thin, paper thin, or more than paper thin. Round and round. And you can see all these wonderful little tentacles off the sides. And here's the first one for size comparison. So that little purple edge added a whole lot of size, but you see it's about the same size as the original layers, just that purple has added a whole nother layer of interest to it. Here are the two flowers we just made side by side. See a big size difference. The shimmery of the bamboo, you can kind of see the color and textural difference right now, but it'll become more obvious as they dry. A lot of the shimmers show up more when they dry. And then I'm going to show you a whole batch of finished ones.